see the image. I'm also talking right now. But, the tab's muted, so it doesn't even matter. Unmute site. How about now? Talking some more.
I did hear music. I just muted the tab. I don't hear an echo right now.
Actually, I don't hear music either, so is this even a good test on my part? My tab's not muted. I'm in the moderator view, and I'm not hearing anything at all.
I heard music. That's weird.
Do you not now?
Well, because I
don't think I don't think I am. There's the mute button, and then there's the, what do we call that UI element, the volume control.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. How's everybody doing today?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah. I know the week's been back-to-back crazy for me. So, all right. So without further ado, I think, we'll probably just do a quick introduction and jump straight into it. So I'm Anthony, the data engineer. We got O'Grady, the software engineer, and we have Lee, the database administrator, DBA, in the cloud now. So I think he's fully embracing AWS. I think that's a good topic sometime. All right. So last week we did questions from the audience, and what we ended up having to happen. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. So we had a list of questions, and from the audience, and it was great. We had tons of them, and we couldn't fit them all in. So we went ahead and we decided to jump back into that this week. So what we got going on here is a question that says, what can I do in my current role before I pursue my MBA to better position myself at a highly competitive firm like McKinsey and Bain?
Sorry, I was dealing with streaming things.
Technical
What
stuff?
was the question again? Let's get going with that.
What can I do in my current role before I pursue my MBA to better position myself at a highly competitive firm like McKinsey and Bain?
Okay.
Can we be reminded of what is McKinsey and Bain again? Maybe I
think this
look
question
up.
came from Spirit, and I believe that's one of the companies trying to get into over in California, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't have my chat open, so let me get that open too.
Yeah, Spirit said that that's his question. That's their question.
Throw us some deets. He's in the chat.
Oh, sorry. Covered Anthony. There we go.
Management consult. Hey, my face went away. Management consulting firm.
Yeah, that's what I figured it was talking about.
So another big company hires them to handle some particular project or issue. Is that away from that?
I think they deal with like CRMs and connecting data is my understanding. Because we've talked about this off. Yeah. So we talked about this off before a little bit off stream. But I mean, either way, it doesn't. I don't feel like. I don't want to say this wrong, but I don't feel like the position you're going for needs to be. I don't know. I think you should tailor your resume and your experience toward whatever position you're wanting to get. We've discussed that before. Editing your resume to make sure it reflects the positive qualities about yourself that fit this job, not just a general resume. And as far as getting ready for, I'm assuming that's like the more prestigious of the places you're looking, and they want like an MBA and they want, certificates and stuff that maybe paper means more to them, which is some companies is true. But if that's the case, and it's a more prestigious company that looks more at credentials or not credentials, but accomplishments, then it might be worth it going and doing a $100 class just so you get a nice certificate saying you did it. There's also a lot of free courses you can take. Even LinkedIn has courses. I don't know if you guys have seen those or done them yet, but they're little like micro certificates, I guess you call them, just like badges. So it's like, hey, I have these 6 badges on my LinkedIn now, and maybe your competitor that you're going against, to get this job, maybe they have 0. So there's little things like that I feel like are valuable.
Yeah, I kind of like that tack. If credentials are important in one case, then yeah, look at things like Udemy. I was also thinking about Coursera, where you can, I think it's Coursera, where you can take classes from actual universities, like Stanford, Harvard, little places like that, that could potentially mean something and help separate you from another candidate. So
I think that's what it is separating yourself from everyone else that's applying. It's not so much you being the best that this company's ever seen. It's, are you the most qualified of the people that are currently applying? And if you can edge up anything off anybody, by having an extra certificate or an extra certification, or even like those badges. You know, all those little things add up that when a potential employer sees them, you know, they just see you on paper. So it's very difficult until you get to the interview process to establish yourself as like, I know what I'm talking about. Because
Yeah.
you know, a lot of us know what we're talking about, but it's difficult to portray that on paper, I think, sometimes.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
he clarifies. The other thing is, the other thing they do is case studies. So I know when I'm talking to someone who's interested in getting into IT, a lot of times I say, if the degree's great. If you don't have a degree, do a capstone. And even if you have a degree, do a capstone, right? When you're trying to differentiate yourself, and like O'Grady said, papers is good, certificates and degrees and all that. But on top of that, if you're up against someone else who also has the MBA, and you're up against someone else who has 2 MBAs, whatever, the fact that you did something, you got a little bit of experience, I think would take you over the top. So, for example, maybe if you're going to be in a highly analytical role and you learn some SQL, you learn some, front end of your choice like Power BI or some other analytics tool, and you do actual reporting. I talked to a candidate recently who that was one of the things that they brought up, right? They took COVID data and they did a lot of different analysis on it, and they were able to showcase that they learned how to do a thing, so to speak, and they showed the insight they got. It's like, well, how more can you prove that you can do a thing than making up your own thing and doing it? So now that was very biased to being analytical. If this position involves something else, then find something that you can capstone, so to speak. You can show off the work that you've done, show that, like, yeah, I have the degree and I can do something with it. And here's what I did.
Yeah. So I had to do a little looking about case study interviews. What I've looked at so far, it sounds really similar to the test, Anthony, that you and I have taken for Microsoft, where you get a question that says, you work for XYZ company that has these services, and their backup schedule for their database is, Sunday full backup, every day they have a diff, and every 15 minutes they have a transaction log backup. On Thursday at 1:00 in the morning,
this thing happens.
What do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Or to make it, there are other T-SQL-y things that I could probably make up that would be more fitting for you, but me saying that scenario, I'm sure resonates with you and the tests you've taken. So, Spirit, what I would say is, find out what, in terms of trying to prepare for that, I mean, just learn what the scenarios are, and that's going to come a lot from just knowing the job, looking at the job description, understanding what's in there, what kind of problems is someone in that position going to have to tackle, and then figure out the answers. I don't know that industry, but whatever resources you would need to be able to answer what if this happened, whatever X is, how do you solve that? I think that's going to help you prepare for a case study interview where you've given a scenario with a customer or a client engagement, and then you have to explain what you would do, what you would say, or whatever. That make hopefully that helpful and makes some sense.
Yeah, I think it does.
I'll also say I haven't done case studies, I guess, in that methodology described, but I've done it like in the current job I'm at. I had to write a program. Like, that was part of the interview process. They gave me acceptance criteria, and they said, here's what we want. I did it with 2 different interviews, because I did another place that I interviewed with but ended up not taking the job. but both of them I wrote a very basic program. They had it set up so that if you know how to write this program, then they understand that you're at least this level.
Mm.
That was
Yeah.
one of them. I had a take-home test, and they
Was it
said write this
Fizzbuzz?
program and bring it back to us. The other one, the one at the current company, we did live while I was sitting in the interview. That was, man, you want to talk about some nerves. They're like, hey, write this program. I'm like,
Oh, while they're watching, yeah,
oh, it was just like we are right here, except they're like,
yeah.
pull the screen up. I'm like, oh God.
Wow, that'd be nerve-wracking.
It was.
I can't even type English when other people are watching, let alone
Oh,
code.
I'm with
I can't
you.
type.
Yeah.
Oh, every time someone's watching my screen, I'm like, it'll be like a 5-letter word, and I'm like, I'm sorry it took me 10 minutes to write that word.
And all he's saying is 4 little words.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, it's everybody's gonna have a different interview process.
What's up, craftsman?
A case study is going to definitely, if that's more of your industry standard, I guess, for what you're getting into, then you make yourself the best person ever at case studies. I mean, honestly, that's if you know that's the standard, well, then just beat the standard.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I've always tried.
All right. So,
Hey, Plague, thanks
Spirit
for the
guy.
follow.
So Spirit, if we fumbled, if we didn't quite answer what you're asking, feel free to keep clarifying and keep sending us stuff. Okay. So I know we fumbled around a bit at first before we got our wind. All right.
Yeah,
so
I'll say make sure
you guys okay
everybody.
with the next one?
Yeah, I was gonna say to tell, make sure chat knows that if you have any questions, you can throw them in the chat as well. And we have a list of some that have been sent to us from Discord in different ways. But feel free to, if you have questions, just throw it in there. We can answer on the fly. So
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not gonna lie, I haven't looked at these questions this week. For that reason, I want to be more authentic on answering them. So. And I'm
Go to the
lazy.
next question?
Whatever.
Yeah, next question, I think.
Okay, cool. When your job title or department location doesn't match what you actually do at your current location, and now you're looking to change employers. So, and there's also an example. For example, and they've seen both of these. Your title's analyst or product owner, but more than half of your work is as a developer. Title duty mismatch. Or your web developer, which is not in the traditional IT tech department job role, location department mismatch.
Well, look, thanks
That's
for
not what you said.
the follow there. Name looks familiar. But yeah. Sorry. Continue.
Oh, that was I can say it again.
Okay.
When your
Sounds
job,
good.
basically, it's when your job title or department location doesn't match what you actually do. So and you're looking for another job. So they said basically, for example, your title's analyst or product owner, but more than 50% of your work is as a developer, or you're a web developer in a traditional IT tech department.
So I can take that first. So you guys know my background. I mean, you guys know my background. For chat, just a brief explanation. I did some college before the Marines, left for the Marines for a good amount of time, came back, did some more college, ended up getting a job not in software development, not even in IT. And I had a couple jobs first that were in IT, but I ended up getting, I say like my main job because it was one that actually started like paying the bills where we all work together.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not in IT. It was in a just separate part of the company. And I can attest to that, the fact that my job title did not match what they were looking for experience-wise. I was considered a lab technician, so I repaired electronic devices.
Yeah, you were leaning on your electronics degree at that point, right?
Yeah, I have a double E, so I was leaning on that, being like, okay, cool. Found out I just did not enjoy it. But with that being said, what companies are looking for, I feel like a good company is not looking for a title you had in the past. It's looking at what you did as far as how it can apply to where they want to put you. So in my case, they saw that I had engineering background, and they saw that I haven't really been doing much coding with it, but I was able to sell myself and explain to them the bridge between electronic engineering and software engineering. It's not a huge bridge, honestly, because in electronic engineering we do software programming and microchips and stuff like that. So I was able to explain to them and sell myself, saying, here's my experience and here's why it matters that I'm telling you this. Yeah, and it worked, obviously. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've experienced this as well. So early in my career, I got into IT in like February 2008. I had been I was a call center supervisor. So I had a team of people that took inbound calls and made outbound calls in the physical security industry. Think ADT, but it was smaller. And we had a piece of software there that ran that whole process, and I learned that software really well, and got into IT because the person who was managing that software left the company. So I took over that role, and it was, software name system administrator. And the part of the thing is that software name there that I'm not revealing nobody knows what that is unless you're inside the physical security industry. And so that was my first hurdle when I was go to apply for jobs, and they would see this title in my resume, like, what is that? So I had to make sure that my resume spelled out very specifically what I did and what the skills were that I was using to do that job. And
which is what Dunce is saying right now. Resume writing, highlighting skills versus titles. Yeah, definitely have a little blurb underneath a title, especially if it doesn't match up to what you think they're looking for. So
yeah, and so in short, my answer is make your resume show that you have the skills and that you're already doing the job, if you are. If you don't have the title. So as my career progressed, I kept that title that was mostly meaningless outside of my own company and my own industry, while I was essentially doing DBA work. And it took a number of years to get them to change my title to match what I actually did. But until that happened, I just kept showing in my resume that I had the required skills to do a DBA job because I was already doing it. I just didn't have the title yet. So I think that's the key.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially, go on.
No, I was just going to say that's what some companies don't understand whenever an employee comes up asking for a raise or promotion. A lot of times they're not asking because of the monetary value. They're asking because their title doesn't match what they do. And as a career standpoint, that hurts you. And it makes you have to do more effort and explain, no, I just never was given the title. So it's no, a lot of times we're just trying to match what we feel we're worth,
So I agree with both of their points. So they said resume, make sure you spell it out, explain what you do. So I won't belittle that anymore. But I will say, if you're looking to get an interview, you do that. You put your resume through, and then they're going to ask you some questions about it, right? I recommend you find the nearest 12-year-old or person who mows your lawn or your nephew and explain what you do and see, explain what you do and see if they understand. Then do the same thing with somebody who's 85 and has never heard of technology and explain to them. If you this person, you need to make sure they understand what you truly did, and you might need to practice that. I've definitely had interviews where one of them, in fact, at the end, the interviewer told me, like, okay, I'm gonna be brutally honest with you. I had no bleeping idea, and I'm bleeping, but they didn't. Why I was even talking to you. Like, I looked at his resume and I'm like, why is he here? I got that job, but that person let me know that, like, I was lucky enough to talk to them. So if you're gonna talk to somebody, be ready to really bring your A game and explain. Yes, you're looking for X, and my last job title wasn't X, it was Y. But it was a small shop, or it was the wrong department, but they needed something done, and I was the person who got that stuff done.
Yep.
And be able to explain what you did, and I've said this before in answering other questions. Be up on your vocabulary. That's one of the things that I've struggled up with a lot, is communicating with other people. Especially if they have CS degrees, they learn the correct words.
Yes.
And get good at that. That's my advice, because I still to this day struggle sometimes having those conversations. So
Yeah. I wanted to answer Dunce's question more directly. He's asking, do professional resume writers actually help with highlighting skills versus title? And Dunce, I'll be honest, I don't know, because I've never used one. What I did was I dug in and just read a ton of articles about how to build a resume.
Yeah.
And then I went out and did it. And so I looked at people early on, like JT O'Donnell on LinkedIn, although I think now she's more on TikTok. But if you do an internet search for resume writing and you read a whole bunch of stuff, it might be confusing at first, but I try to pick out the core things that I find that most of them are saying, and then I do those things. So for me, I list skills, things that I can do. So I have my resume up. So for example, I have installation and configuration of SQL Server, including SQL Server reporting services, performance tuning via query plan examination, index maintenance, perf counters, wait stats, third-party tools such as PAL, Confio Ignite, and Idera SQL Doctor. So I'm telling people what I'm capable of doing and the tools I'm using. And the tools part, I think, is important, or at least for me it is, because certain companies, they have certain tools and they want to know that whoever they bring on knows those tools. So they'll look for resumes with those words in them, with those tools.
Sometimes on automated fashion, which is upsetting.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And the other thing is accomplishments. So at my previous job, I actually semi-automated the SQL Server installation process, and I cut probably 2 or 3 hours out of the process, so that when somebody who was in Anthony's department, or a developer or a group of developers needs a SQL Server, I can get it to them faster. I put that on my resume. I say, reduced SQL Server installation and deployment by 3 hours by automating the process.
Yeah,
people want to see skills and results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, specifics are huge on a resume, which goes back to don't lie about anything on a resume, because if it's enough to get you an interview, well, they're probably going to ask you about what you have on your resume, and I don't know. I know some people that don't put the full truth on their resumes, and I feel like it does a disservice to yourself.
I think there's a million memes out there. Google that as well. Not qualified for the job you got.
No, it doesn't mean I'm qualified. It just means that they chose me based on what I wrote.
Okay, so one more thing, unless you guys have more on this before we move to the next one. I want to share, Craftsman in the chat shared something. Craftsman says, just be honest and explain it. Most employers care more about what you can do than your job title. If they care about the job title, then you probably don't want to work there anyway. And I thought that was a good point.
True.
Then I realized on YouTube they're not going to see that chat. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's very, very true. Which will go into our. I was going to say that'll lead into our conversation next week about. I'm going to be running the show with what does that job satisfaction actually mean to you, and like Craftsman saying, If if they're actually looking that deep into the fact that you had a title or something like that, then yeah, maybe it's not that place. Maybe that's not where you're going to get job satisfaction for yourself. So we'll get into that next week, though.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be a good topic. I look forward to that and seeing if I'm curious how much we align or don't align. So that'd be interesting. All right, let's see the next one. And we just did one from chat. What is the difference between business analyst and data analyst?
I can answer from my side, but
I feel like that's an Anthony and O'Grady question.
I'm like, that's a you question. I can answer
so
what a data or
you
what
go
a
ahead,
business
you go ahead,
analyst
yeah.
is.
All right.
You are more of the other side, but for a business analyst, at least in the programming world for us, they're the ones that, well, which we don't really have straight business analysts anymore. We have product owners who are in charge of communicating the ask from the client to the developer. So they're the middle person. They're the one that says, here's the acceptance criteria, here's what they want. They'll do all the work with, making sure that any kind of user interface is flushed out, that if they want specific buttons in specific places. They also clear any blocks when it comes to, let's say I have to deal with the DBA and I have a question. They're the one, they're the one now, at least in my setup. I talk to them and they say, okay, let's talk to the DBA. Sometimes they'll just say, yeah, just go talk to the DBA, because it's easier for me to explain what I'm trying to get across than it is to do it through a middleman. But for a lot of stuff, it's I talk to them and say, hey, I need this, or I have a block here, I can't get past this unless so and so does something. They'll take that on and they'll do it. They'll come back and be like, all right, it's done. It alleviates a lot of pressure for the developer. So now, as far as a business, as far as Anthony's side, because you deal more with that side, right?
Yeah. So I just want. So what you're describing, you said, that's more of a product owner, right?
More like a product owner, yeah.
I feel like I don't agree with the attachment of business analysts to being a PO. I feel like there's a distinction there, and I know a previous employer, especially early on when I started, that's what they did. They have business analysts as basically a PO, right? And a bunch of other things. The definition that resonates with me is the business analyst is someone who's taking data and insights and doing actions, doing something, changing something, moving something forward, working with whatever department it makes sense with. Whereas a data analyst is taking the data and then just building something on top of it. Reports is the way to put it, way too simply, but building reports or building any kind of insights, gathering insights for others. And that may be a business analyst, that may be leadership, that could be operations, right? It could be anybody, but they're just taking the data and making it more usable for somebody else. Both of them would have to know the data, but what they're doing with it, it's a noun and a verb, in my opinion. Or that was all gibberish, let me know. Holler at me in the chat.
That makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yep.
We good on that one?
I think so.
All right, cool. How can I strengthen my skills as a data analyst? I choose Lee.
Yeah.
All right. So you need to be good at math, I feel like, or at least have a good a basic understanding of math, because a lot of places are going to ask you things like, what were sales year over year, or compare, the quantities of this that sold in this month to this time last year, or things like that. Mm-hmm. Not always, but those are common questions. Like when I got started using reporting services, I would often look at things like a correlation between service dispatches of a technician to go fix equipment corresponded to an alarm that occurred at a business or residence where we dispatched police or fire. So we dispatched police or fire. How many of those then had a service call afterwards? And I would correlate that information essentially to talk about, false alarms and service calls related to false alarm information. Well, that's, you have to have some math. You have to know that and how to like summarize data. You need to get into reporting tools, whatever that is. Maybe that's reporting services, maybe that's Tableau, Power BI, other things that I don't know about because I live in the Microsoft world. So there's probably other stuff outside that world. And you need to understand data warehousing, data lakes, that sort of stuff, at least at some kind of foundational level, what they are, and be comfortable with researching that and maybe even building one. I mean, if you want to like really strengthen your skills as a data analyst, maybe you go build yourself a data warehouse or your own data lake just to play with data. Like somebody else talked about, somebody had an example about COVID data. Go build that, put a billion something and try to aggregate it and build something that has pre-aggregated information that you then query to get data for a visualization and a report. That's what I would do.
Yeah, and use that as your resume builder right there. Be like, hey, here's what I do on the side. You want to see it? Make sure it's professional enough and nice set up, and then you show them. But yeah, I think that's.
I'm gonna lead with something, even if you're not entry level, but definitely if you're entry level, I'm gonna say a bad word, SQL, SQL. Yeah, I would get as strong as possible. Be very comfortable with it, because even if you are working in the front end tool, it's the Franca whatever of data. Everything uses SQL. Everything either straight up honestly or under the hood, and even things that are called NoSQL. One of the bullet points is, oh, by the way, you can use SQL. At first they were like anti-SQL, and then they realized it's the language of data. So definitely get as comfortable as possible with SQL. You don't have to be up to the level where you're writing books, but know how to get what you need. If someone gave you a bunch of tables, how to pull out what you need. And then my second item I would say is do it a lot. Get to data, Lee already said, get a billion rows, right? I would say get 20 tables. Join them here and here. Answer questions. Done, asked. Where are we lagging behind in traffic sources being converted to sales? Yeah. Answer as many questions as possible. Yeah. Get very comfortable with it so that when you're in one of those painful interviews like O'Grady was talking about, where you're on a Zoom call or you're on a whiteboard with a group of people and you're already palms sweaty, mom's spaghetti, you can answer the questions and show what you can do, right? And then also to echo Lee, pick a front-end tool of your choice, Power BI or otherwise, and play with it a lot too. Even if you end up going somewhere that uses a different tool, your experience and a tool will help you be more comfortable. And then at least when they ask you how to do something, you can say, well, I did this in my tool, and they can go, oh yeah, that makes sense. You would do it like this here, or it's hidden behind this ribbon or whatever.
Exactly.
So we didn't talk about cloud in that answer at all, but
was cloud or did I miss that?
What's that?
You say was cloud mentioned in the question, or are we just saying in general?
Well, no, it wasn't mentioned in the question at all, but a lot of data resides in the cloud now. So you need to, one thing I would suggest is, familiarizing yourself with data lakes, data resources in the cloud. So AWS, for example, has Redshift. Azure has Azure Synapse. So if you have experience with those, even if it's just experimenting, maybe you create a free account on Azure or AWS just to say, you built a project or you dabbled, mention that, do that, get some experience, show that you have some kind of concept of data in the cloud, and that would also strengthen your skills and potentially impress someone that you're trying to get them to pay.
Yeah.
You're trying to get them to pay you for time.
Yeah, and that's I think a lot of these questions we're answering are for a lot of people that are trying to get into the IT world more than someone like trying to move from Dev 1 to Dev 2, obviously. But, for that, any kind of, like Lisa, dabbling, I thought I just knew a little bit of SQL because I've done it with you guys, and I've had some projects where I'm like, yep, I'm doing the SQL, I'm doing the store procedures and stuff. So when I put that into an interview-wise, someone asked me a question about it. To me, I say, yeah, I've done some SQL. I'm like, I can pull data and get around, until I show them what I did, and they're like, no, for a developer, you'd have way more than you even realize, and that's all that was dabbling in SQL on almost what I would consider it was development time, but it was like non-core development, and it was like a secondary development, and the companies look at that as gold because the more well-rounded you are as a person, even if it's just dabbling in things and just knowing a little bit of SQL and, knowing how to use AWS and knowing, I've written some .NET, little things like that can be built upon, and, careers can be made out of them.
Yeah. When you're applying for a senior level position or you're not, right? So
Yeah.
if, if you have experience in something and they want some of that experience, you should be fine. And it's actually kind of a shame that, I didn't realize until after I stopped working with you, O'Grady, that you felt that way. Because after the fact, when I found out, and you shared this story more than once, right?
Yeah.
You went in there and you're like, yeah, I'm kind of minor leagues. And they're like, and you show them what you can do. And they're like, no, this is not only what we expect, but it's more than we expect.
I remember being on calls with you. Team. I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah, no, don't do that. Run. No. I remember being on calls with you and we're working through a problem, and you seemed upset that you didn't know the solution that because I deep dive in that.
Yeah.
So you didn't know the solution I had, and I didn't think of it at the time. But now I realize that, after the fact, you didn't realize that I was showing you something, senior level, something that a lot of people didn't know how to do, and you thought, oh, this is something I should have known a long time ago. And that's the imposter syndrome, right? We do that to ourselves all the time. But
especially when it's a new guy that I'm in the process of training or something, and they're like, well, you should do it this way. I'm like, damn it.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Oh.
Which is completely fine because then I learn as well. But
yeah.
There is that gut check of maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But we've been there. So.
And it turns out you do. You just didn't realize it because of your situation.
Apparently.
Yeah. And if your boss is watching, he does. He really does.
What I hear.
Okay, so we actually caught up on all the questions.
Oh,
so that's
nice.
That's awesome. Yes. So now, do you guys have any questions? Since chat isn't giving us anything else, do you want to get O'Grady, you want to get me or Lee talking about something? Or
well,
Lee,
I
do you
was
want to
just.
get me or O'Grady?
I think Dunce down there, Dunce should maybe we'll do it off stream. He has a really interesting API we've been talking about, and whether or not it's gonna be Twitch TOS is hilarious, which is why it's maybe we'll talk about it off stream first, but But that being said, me and Dunce talk programming stuff all the time, or just random nerd stuff. If anybody in chat at all ever feels like they found a new technology or a new API or something that could be interesting, you can either shoot us a message or throw in our Discord or anything. And I mean, like in my off time, I'm also a nerd. Like it's not a just during work and just during the podcast. Like no, it's always.
So in that case, I think it's about time. Grady, you want to go shopping for someone to raid?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, and sorry guys, we're cutting a little tight tonight, just because I have a hard cutoff at 8. I didn't mention that to chat, but
it's not a show without upgrading. I mean, come on. What's
only because I'm the one
source?
streaming it.
While you're searching, if someone explains to me what that means, we can probably talk about it. What is HID source?
Yeah, I don't know what that is either.
Ooh, okay. Because it just says, it wasn't even a question, it just says alternative human interface device. Oh, like
that is
have a chip, or I love it, like a key. Oh, I love it. Okay.
Like a keyboard.
So wait.
Sorry, I'm looking for some.
Moving on.
It's like a keyboard.
Did you guys just make a left turn?
It was a left turn, yes. That's what.
This is not that kind of stream.
I mean, it is technically allowed.
Lee, have you caught on? I'm just making sure I'm not.
I don't want to be. We should move on.
I don't want to be the only one that's uncomfortable here, right?
Yeah.
So,
I'm always uncomfortable.
I was all excited too because I'm going completely nerdy and not dirty. So moving on.
It's a very lewd, but also nerdy topic about an API that should be available for a device on training certain muscles of your body by squeezing them through exercise.
Good night, Spirit.
We discussed that it's just causing, it's just talking about being a healthier person.
Parsing Bluetooth. This is from chat. Parsing Bluetooth from a hardware device with a non-public.
Oh no, we're talking about the same thing. But yeah, I think.
So who are we rating again?
We can move that discussion to the Discord, and I think honestly though, it really is an interesting topic and discussion because it is API related. It is a closed API currently that it would be interesting if there was an open API, and we were discussing the different applications that be able to be used using, and not so much just this even, but using different interface devices like that. But we can move that into the stream. We're gonna raid Mr. V. I don't know if we've rated him before or not, but
I don't think so. Mr. V.
Mr. Vengeance. He is playing some Monster Hunter. And really good dude. If I could spell his name right.
Cool. In that case, everyone out there who's listening, before we end up actually jumping off and rating, you miss any of these streams, we put all the embarrassing conversations out on YouTube, the non-embarrassing ones too, of course. So you can check us out there. Ready, Set, Data. Yeah, you look us up. We'll do the streaming thing live every Thursday, 7 p.m. Usually it's a little more than an hour. Just got to cut it short this time. And we'll see you either here or there.
All right, we are put in for the raid. Make sure you go follow him. Tell him who sent you. And hopefully one day we'll have some like emotes that we can use. But yeah, so we will catch you guys next week. Thanks again. Awesome stream. And see you. Everybody good?
Thanks for the questions.
See everyone later.
See y'all.